Hello, welcome. My name is Cameron Stewart, Senior Technical Marketing Manager here at SolarEdge, and today we're going to wire up a SolarEdge Home Load Controller to a 240 volt coil contactor. So this is a 2-pole contactor rated for 40 amps, and the wiring is fairly simple and straightforward. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up the cover to the load controller, and to do that, you're just going to push your flat blade screwdriver, apply a little pressure to the lid and lift off as the compression clamps are opened, and just pull the cover off. Now let's look at the anatomy. So on the load controller, we see that there's line 1, line 2. This is the power supply or the supply side of the load controller. And we see channel 1 and channel 2 of the load controller. So we can control 2 contactors simultaneously. So right now we have normally open and common on channel 1 and normally open, common, and normally closed on channel 2. So we're just going to use channel 1. You could use either channel that you want, but today I'm just going to use channel 1. Now let's look at the anatomy of the contactor. So the contactor has A1 and A2 for the coil. So this is a 240 volt coil, so we're going to get 240 volts there. And then we have the supply side and the load side. So let's wire the contactor to the load controller. So first things first, I'm going to grab some wires, and you can see on the contactor there's these little spade connectors. So I'm just going to crimp on some spade terminals to my conductors so I can utilize these terminals. So again, line 1 and line 2. And to land the conductor into the load controller, you're going to use a flat blade screwdriver and push down on that compression spring. Okay, tug test, make sure they're good. And we're going to wire manage and bend our wires. Okay, and that is how you wire the supply side. And so I'm going to spin this around so you can see. So we can see that I went from line 1 to line 1 on the contactor and line 2 from the load controller to line 2 on the contactor, utilizing these spade terminal crimp-ons. So now we're going to wire up the control side. So again, I'm going to go normally open to coil because that's how I want the coil to be controlled. I want the coil to be normally open. So now I'm going to wire my control side of the load controller to the contactor. So I'm going to go from normally open to coil because that's the state that I want for my coil. So normally open. Push down. Get the conductor in. Okay. And then I'm going to go from common to line 1. Okay, now let me give you a little spin so you can see. So again, common to line 1 and normally open to coil. So we can see line 1 right here, and we can see our coil. See our coil rating right there. Okay, so I still have to get 240 volts for the coil. So we're going to just add a jumper, and we're going to add a jumper from line 2 to the coil. Okay. So now the coil has 240 volts on it, and I'm going to give you a little spin so you can see, and I got that 240 volts from this little jumper. You can see that the coil has 240. And now we're going to wire from the load side back to our load. So line 1, line 2. Okay. And we're going to wire from the breaker to the supply side. Now, what I wholeheartedly recommend is you have somebody in the office just buy parts and build a couple of boxes for the week and do all this pre-wiring before the crew goes out to the job site. So the only wires that would be missing are these 4 wires. Everything else would be pre-wired. And that is how you wire a SolarEdge load controller to a 2-pole contactor that has 240 volt coil. Let me give you another spin.